Hi, and welcome to BiaCare TV. This edition is devoted to presenting the measuring instructions for an ArmAssist custom garment. With the patient seated, place the arm on a flat surface with the elbow slightly bent and palm down. All measurements should be taken in centimeters. The first step is to locate the landmarks. Encircle the arm with the tape measure located as high as possible at the axilla. As with all measurements, do not pull the tape tight. Apply just enough tension to keep the tape in contact with the skin. Mark on the proximal edge of the tape at the anterior, dorsal, and posterior aspects of the arm, and record the circumference on the line labeled posterior axilla. Encircle the arm with the proximal edge of the tape measure located at the elbow crease and the olecranon process, or elbow bone. Mark the dorsal aspect of the arm along this edge and record the circumference in the line labeled elbow. Finally, encircle the arm with the distal edge of the tape measure aligned with the ulnar styloid process. Mark the dorsal aspect of the arm along this edge and record the circumference on the line labeled ulnar styloid. Starting with the 0 of the tape measure on the mark at the elbow, mark the dorsal aspect of the arm in 5 cm increments up to the mark at the axilla. Next, starting with the 0 of the tape measure on the mark at the elbow, mark the dorsal aspect of the arm in 5 cm increments down to the mark at the wrist. Measure the length from the elbow crease to the mark on the anterior aspect of the axilla, and record the length in box A. Next, measure the length from the olecranon process, or elbow bone, to the mark on the posterior aspect of the axilla, and record the length in box B. Moving to the lower arm, position the 0 point of the tape at the mark on the dorsal aspect of the elbow. Measure the length to the mark at the wrist, and record the length in box C. Finally, measure the hand from the mark at the wrist to the 3rd metacarpal head and record the length in box D. The final step is to measure the arm circumferences. Measure the circumference of the arm at the mark 5 centimeters above the elbow and record the value on the corresponding line. Measure the circumference at each remaining mark above the elbow and record the values on the corresponding lines. If the length in box A or box B is less than 25 centimeters, you may not use all of the lines available. Moving to the lower arm, measure the circumference of the arm at the mark 5 centimeters below the elbow and record the value on the corresponding line. Measure the circumference at each remaining mark below the elbow and record the values on the corresponding lines. If the length in box C is less than 25 centimeters, you will not use all of the lines available below the elbow for recording circumferences. Finally, measure the width of the hand across the dorsal metacarpal heads and record the width in box E. Please review the measuring form to make sure your values are correct and easy to read. Thanks for joining us for this edition of BiaCare TV. If you have further questions or concerns, feel free to give us a call or visit our website at BiaCare.com.